Hi there, Sarah here, and welcome to the first episode of Peri Pod, a podcast for neurodivergent ladies who are going through perimenopause and are just sick of feeling like. In the first episode today, I'm first going to go over my experience, some of the symptoms I've had, when it started, looking back, what I now realize was perimenopause that I did not know then. I'm also going to go through some things that I've learned. I did a whole lot of research because I had no clue what was wrong with me. And then I'm finally going to hit on some things that actually seemed to work and things that I tried that did not work. My goal with the Peri Pod is to help you save time, help you save a little bit of your sanity, because I've done so much research into this. And I dislike very wordy podcasts. I prefer things that are kind of detailed, but also to the point. So that is what I want to serve to you as well. And I know this may surprise you, but I do not have a doctorate degree. So this is a culmination of podcasts that I've learned from, research that I've done through scientific articles, Reddit ravaging, and personal experience. Let's get started. So let's start out with my experience with perimenopause so far. Right now, I am 38. Ironically, I am pregnant, and we'll actually get to that in a bit because that has some really interesting information that has to do with hormones. But I was probably 35 or 36 when I started to experience perimenopause. And it was kind of almost accompanied by burnout. Now, at the time, I did not realize that I was autistic and had ADHD. And for a lot of women, neurodivergent, who are late diagnosed, this is the time that we realize that we are neurodivergent. When I really look back, even before that age, there was a period of about a year where my libido was just non-existent, which was very strange for me. And I have heard a lot of other women express this as part of the onset of perimenopause. It was definitely one of the biggest signals to me that something was wrong, that something was going on. And it was one of the things that really spurred me to start looking around to see how I needed to change or what I need to fix in order to get myself back. When the symptoms were getting very, very strong, they were becoming completely unavoidable, was when my toddler was about a year old and I started to just experience this chronic fatigue. I was just so tired all the time, all throughout the day. It was really difficult for me to make decisions. I could tell my multitasking that I was okay at before was really plummeting. My moods were getting really negative. I was feeling a lot more depressed. And it was by the end of each day, I was just so worn down and so tired and just almost debilitated that I kind of like crashed and burned. And this resulted in some kind of messy situations. There was a couple times when I was trying to take my teenage daughter to her volleyball games, which are naturally in the evenings. And I would literally go outside and I would be crying outside, just in this state of cyclical feeling, like almost like my life was just going to never get any better. Like, this is what every day is going to be like, being really, really tired, not feeling any better, not having a social life. There are certain things that I gravitated towards in this state of depression. Before this, I had experienced a lot of anxiety as well. So I would say my anxiety and depression levels went through the roof. I had a lot of joint pain, which was very strange. My body felt like it was drained, a little bit more so in pain too. I used to exercise all the time. I enjoyed strength training. I wasn't insane about it, but I found that I couldn't even exercise without being so sore that I was just like, like I couldn't move the next day, not in a good way, but in just like a tank, like you got run over by a truck. Other things I experienced at this time, so much fun, were headaches. I would get headaches. My GI tract, my stomach hurt all the time. It didn't matter really what I was eating. And I would say that I'm a fairly healthy eater. I don't go to McDonald's, but I don't eat the best either, but fairly healthy. And my stomach just couldn't handle it. I was constantly in the bathroom, and my stomach would just hurt all day. My histamines were also through the roof. I remember January of a couple years ago, I got allergies, and I've never had allergies before. And they were so strong that it was really hard to breathe. It was affecting my oxygen supply, which was making me more tired. And I was just like, I'm like 37. How have I avoided getting allergies all this time? And now I'm getting them. And that led me to do a bunch of different things to try to get rid of my allergies, not really knowing what was wrong with me. All around, I would say there was a bunch more symptoms, but night sweats was a big one. But I felt like I was not myself, like I was losing myself, like I couldn't get back to who I was, no matter how hard I tried. And I was trying so hard to figure out what was wrong. And my poor husband would come home every day and he didn't know who he was coming home to. I could be a complete mess. I could be more so level-headed, but a majority of the time, just a complete mess because it was towards the end of the day. I had a toddler and I had my teen girls and I was juggling all this mom stuff and it was just too much. So another big symptom was rage. Oh my gosh. There was some anger in there. My husband actually bought me a punching bag for Christmas. So during this time, I tried a bunch of different things and I learned a lot of stuff because I was constantly researching and trying to figure out how to feel better, how to be the person that I know that I was before and how to get back to that person. And during this journey, I found out I had ADHD and I started taking some stimulants. And that helped to a point, but I would also find sometimes I would come off of those stimulants at the end of the day and I would just have this horrible depression loop kind of crash that would last for an hour, maybe longer, where it just felt like I had a lot of suicidal ideation and things were very dark. It was very hard to escape those feelings. I also was learning a lot about neurodivergence because I realized I had ADHD. And it made me realize and understand that we experience these hormonal fluctuations a lot stronger than neurotypical people do. That's why a lot of neurodivergent women end up with PMDD, or you can just sense the fluctuations throughout your monthly cycle so much stronger. The ADHD piece of the puzzle, the neurodivergent piece of the puzzle was a huge piece, but it didn't explain so many things. So I learned about nutrient deficiencies, especially iron, which helps with dopamine, which helps with mood, which helps with being able to breathe and get enough oxygen and not feel tired. And I'd always been kind of borderline anemic. So I learned that you shouldn't just test for your iron, which is more of a hemoglobin in the blood, but you also need to test for ferritin, which is stored iron. And you also need to test for the iron serum in your blood because you might have normal-ish levels of the typical iron test, but when you check your ferritin, it could be really low. And that can cause so many problems, which can bring me to another kind of tangent of like the food that we eat and how the food affects us and how we aren't getting as much nutrition from our food these days because of how everything is made for us, how everything is produced, how everything is grown. I live in the United States. There's a lot of chemicals that people are allowed to put in our food. But just going back to the nutrient deficiencies, there's a few other really key ones. Another big one is B vitamins, and that can cause you to feel awful as well if you don't have enough. And some of us may be taking B vitamins, but neurodivergent people, a lot of us have this genetic mutation, which doesn't allow us to assimilate the typical B vitamin that is given with the vitamins you might buy at the store. This is called folic acid, but rather we need something called folate, which is a methylated form of the B vitamin. Methylated just means that it is active. It's ready for our body to use. It's so much better for us. And the folic acid, while it's promoted as something that's so good for you, it's actually a synthetic form. And folic acid is something that is added to a lot of the food that we eat today. And the natural folate form has been removed from a lot of the foods that we've eaten. Another big thing to check is your thyroid. And I don't have as much mental recollection for the thyroid, but there's a couple of free T3 and T4 things. And if you look them up, one of them or either one of them can be off, and that can cause a lot of issues as well. So checking your thyroid is really important. So those were 3 of the big ones, but getting your blood checked before you do anything else just gets your body in the right balanced state, and honestly may save you from just feeling awful in a lot of different ways. So after learning a lot about these nutrient deficiencies, I also was looking at food, and I was looking at medicine as well, like stimulants that we take or the SSRIs that were prescribed, a lot of us neurodivergent people. And a lot of those will, over time, pull nutrients out of your system, not just because you may be eating less because they're an appetite suppressant, but also because they just use those things. Your stimulant uses iron. And if you're continuously taking a stimulant and you're not watching and making sure that you're taking at least a multivitamin, checking your blood levels regularly, then you can really have a lot of issues down the line or make yourself even feel worse. Another big deficiency was vitamin D. I take a prenatal right now, which has everything under the sun in it. But I also, I know that vitamin D is another big one, and you can't just get enough from the sun. So let's talk a little bit about food, just a tiny bit. You, I'm sure, know that a lot of our food doesn't have what it used to anymore. A big one is bread and our flour. And about 150 years ago, we stopped using the whole wheat berry in our flour, which, as you know, flour is used for pasta, it's used for bread, it's used for cereal, it's used for so many different things. And once we did this, we took 1/3 of what was there. And so the other 2/3 are really important. There are things like the B vitamins and the iron and a couple other really important things that now we have lost every time that we eat grains, which we're told are so healthy for us. So eating anything that has gluten in it, that has flour in it, can actually be having a negative impact on us because they put things back into the flour once they realized that we were getting deficient in it, like folic acid. What do you know? And a lot of us can't really use folic acid. It doesn't help us. We can't assimilate it. They put in a couple other synthetic things, which again, they don't do what the real thing does for our bodies. So time and time again, all the research that I've done, all the food, all this stuff about gut health, all this stuff about mental health, all this stuff about hormone health, as far as what you eat, it just comes down to eating as much of a whole food diet as you can, and then supplementing a bunch of other stuff too, because even the whole foods that we eat, even the fruits and veggies, just aren't as nutritious as we need them to be. I'll get to supplements in a few minutes because I think there are a few really important ones out there that I've learned and that I trust. And no, I'm not affiliated with them. I'm not making any money from talking about them. So just something else that you can kind of take a look at. But before I get there, I also want to talk about chemicals in our everyday life because there's so many chemicals in our skincare, in our makeup, in our laundry detergent, in our shampoo, and all the goos and potions, and just, the cleaners that we use, all the stuff that comes into contact with our skin every day. And I'm not saying you're going to die, but all these chemicals, are sinking into our skin. And if we're already feeling like garbage, then our body has to work that much harder to get rid of these chemicals. It's, natural filtration sort of way. Then we're just making it harder on our body. I remember, I think it was Sandy Glasgon. She talked about your body being like a bank account, and you have so much money in there, and if you keep taking out with things like putting chemicals on your skin or eating McDonald's or whatever, and you're not like putting back in, then you're going to be depleted, and then you're going to go in the negative, and that's when your body is going to be off balance. So I did switch a lot of the stuff in my house to things that are chemical free, that are all natural. Now, not everything works that great. That's all natural. But there are so many things that are so easy to switch slowly, 1 or 2 things a week where you just start switching over to a different laundry detergent, or you start buying different hair care products that still work for your hair, but they don't have all the added junk in them that's going right into your scalp and right into your skin, your bloodstream, and just kind of helping your body with that little bit of a boost. Moving on to the things that I found helped me versus the things that did not help me. I think each of us ladies are going to have specific symptoms that are way more overbearing and some that are more manageable naturally throughout our perimenopause journey. And I know that for me, one of the big ones was histamines, having these allergies, literally making it almost impossible for me to breathe. I couldn't sleep. I just couldn't escape it. It was inside my house. It was out of my house. It didn't matter where I was. I was constantly feeling these allergies, these histamines. And another big one for me was my stomach issues. So I've heard a lot of people talking about changing their diet, which will help your histamines as well, going towards a more whole food diet. It's very difficult for us because we have so much to do, so much of a hard time with eating food as it is, planning food, making food, remembering to eat food, that it's really hard to think about switching completely over to a whole foods diet. So on this regard, I really didn't switch to a whole foods diet. I tried to eat more whole foods was what I did, and tried to pay attention to what was bothering my body and what was not bothering my body. Now, as far as histamines going into your body via food, you can Google it, there's certain higher histamine foods that a lot of us eat all the time, and a lot of us would think that are very helpful and healthy for us, like fresh spinach or tomatoes. And you'll find that if you kind of try to cut back on some of those things, it may make a big difference, and it may not. So some of it is just trial and error for your body. I found I was very acidic. I have a really good friend. She has ADHD. She's going through perimenopause right now. She had and has a lot of issues with her skin breaking out, and that's a result of histamines as well. But some of the very interesting things that I found about allergies was everybody tells you that eating your local honey will help with your allergies or your local pollen. I had my midwife suggest taking elderberry and stinging nettle. So naturally, I had to go on and do a lot of research about this and actually look for the science behind it. And I was researching local honey. And in reality, local honey is really not going to help your allergies, because if you think about it, bees are pollinating flowers. And unless you're specifically allergic to flowers, which I found I was not, because flower pollen doesn't really fly around in the air. I live in Florida. We have pollen from oak trees. And when the pollen from the oak trees blooms, it's right over your head. No matter where you go, there's oak trees all over the place. And it's just falling down through the air. And you just can't breathe. And bees really aren't pollinating these types of trees. They're not pollinating other palms and other things that bloom and grow. They're not pollinating grass. A lot of us have grass allergies. And then there's, of course, dust allergies. So there can be dust in your house. But the bee pollen or the honey, the local honey, really isn't going to do a lot of good. And I found an article, they tried it. They had people eating tons of honey every day, and then other people eating fake honey, I guess, every day. And it really didn't make any kind of an improvement, which was really depressing because I was like, no, I thought this would do it. So then I started taking elderberry and stinging nettle, which there was, some instances where it would kind of boost your immune system and it would help soothe your allergies, but that really didn't do anything for these really heavy, strong spring allergies. Gosh, I tried so many other things. I tried a neti pot. Talk about a sensitivity nightmare. That was not fun, but you know what? When you feel like garbage, sometimes you'll try anything, and it would kind of clear me out a little bit for a few minutes, but it really didn't do anything. And I was too scared of getting some kind of amoeba up in my head and dying from it and keep doing it. A really big help for this one was getting a dehumidifier. Like I said, I live in Florida, so if you live somewhere that's humid or it's a humid time of year, reducing the humidity just kind of helps dry out the air around you in your house. So there's less water vapor for all of these allergens to be sticking to and just floating around, going into your face and breathing it in. I shampooed my carpets so many times. I'm sorry to say I have carpets. I like carpets, but I'm sure that they're holding a bunch of dirt. So I've shampooed them, dehumidified them. That didn't seem to make a big difference. We got a really, really good air purifier, and that made a huge difference with the outdoor allergies. If like this year, I was still struggling a lot with the oak tree allergies, but I could go inside and the air inside was clean. So, of course, there's a good old antihistamine pills. And when I did some research and actually found answers about your histamines, antihistamine pills don't really do a whole lot for the situation that I was in. And if you're experiencing high histamines because of perimenopause, it probably won't help you either. It might be kind of a band-aid. It might help you get a little, feel a little bit better. But overall, your body is actually just, you have these mast cells in your head and they are overreacting. They are off balance because your hormones are fluctuating. And so they're just going off all over the place because there's like no solid ground for them. They need balance. And so, especially if your bucket's already full because you've got all these hormone fluctuations happening, and then you're tossing in these dust allergies or these outdoor allergies that maybe didn't really bother you before because your body knew what to do with them, but now the bucket's overflowing. And so your body's just freaking out and you're stuffy and you can't breathe. There's a nose spray by Zicam that really was probably my lifesaver last year. Even then, it didn't always work. It was especially for decongesting your nose, and you can't use it all the time, but it was another kind of a Band-Aid that would help me get through the day. A big one was reducing stress, and this one is useful in every stage of perimenopause in every neurodivergent person's life. And I know that it's not always possible, but if there's any way that you can reduce your stress as much as you can, that just gives your body more of a chance to be able to fight back and have the energy to do so. And then finally, there were supplements that I tried. And I mentioned a few of them, but there was one that I found. I found this great website, Seeking Health, and they actually were the ones that I was reading about all the histamines. And it made so much sense. And they have stuff that's for neurodivergent people. It's methylated, it's active, it's ready to use. And so I got one of their histamine, it's called histamine nutrients, because that one is safe to take while you're pregnant. But I got one of those, and that seems to be helping us a lot. My husband has bad allergies. It's helping him too. But they have a whole slew of other things. Staying hydrated is really important. Taking electrolytes, because your body, if you think about it, blowing your nose, you're constantly losing liquids. And the best electrolyte is coconut water. I'm not a fan of it, but Gatorade isn't really that good for you. And like any electrolyte out there is like full of sugar and crap. The last thing I want to talk about was hormone replacement therapy. And this is something I think a lot of us are really scared to try. I know I was scared to try because I thought hormone replacement would give you hormonal cancer, could give you breast cancer, some other kind of a cancer. And I think that was spread around quite a bit. And I have since, in my research, found that that is not the case. And ironically, a lot of the things that we take, us women, for birth control, any of those hormonal birth control pills, they're all synthetic. And hormone replacement therapy is bioidentical, so it will be naturally used with your body. I'm not going to say it's going to fix everything, because every person is different here. But it's not something to be scared of. I still recommend that you go see a doctor, that you check your blood first, make sure there's no deficiencies, that you try these other avenues, trying to eat healthier. But hormone replacement therapy is something that I'm looking forward to using once I'm no longer pregnant. And another very interesting fact is that while I was experiencing all these terrible, terrible, horrible symptoms, right up until I got pregnant, and then I was really tired, but your hormones during pregnancy start to rise. Your estrogen, your testosterone rises, your progesterone, all those really key factors, they're kind of rising once you get into that second trimester or so, and they're rising and they're rising and they're rising. And I started feeling a lot better mentally. I had a lot less anxiety. I'm not perfect. I'm still neurodivergent. I'm still a little wacky. My depression went down a lot. I felt like myself again. I didn't feel like a stranger was living in my body, a psychopath. And it was, I was able to think more clearly. I didn't solve all my problems, but I could tell, just because of the hormones that were naturally in my body during pregnancy, that hormones were what I really needed. And they might be something that helps you too. And I wanted to share something that I found with you as far as hormones. If you are interested in hormone replacement therapy, you can actually go online to joinflourish.app, not affiliated, but it is a telehealth type messaging service where they will help prescribe you stuff for menopause. And the doctor visits are really cheap. I think they're $42 a flat rate. And you can talk to somebody on your phone, like not even calling them. I think you can just message them, which is so great for us because I hate going to a doctor's office. I feel like everything is so slow. And I'm sure you understand, just like the thought of going to a doctor's office. And if I can instead just talk to somebody online about this, because I know my body, you know your body, then it can make all the difference. Another thing that you can try is telyrx.com, where you can actually order prescription estrogen and progesterone of different types. And you have to pay a doctor's fee of about $20. But they sign off on it online and you can order stuff to get delivered to your house. Well, May, my phone is almost at its limit. I am sweating and my toddler is not taking her nap, so I have to go get her. I definitely welcome your feedback. Please let me know experiences you've had, things that have helped you as well. Anything you can share that will help this community of us women who I feel like are so lost in this part of our lives. I hope this was encouraging for you. I invite your questions. I would love to talk more about this in the next episode, so please subscribe so you don't miss that. And thank you for watching. All right, bye.